Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and I hope you're ready to spiral deeper and deeper into madness, because this time I'm looking at Remedy Entertainment's survival horror game Alan Wake 2, published by Epic Games in 2023. Announced at the Game Awards in 2021, Alan Wake 2 is the long-awaited sequel to Remedy's cult classic action-adventure game, finally reuniting fans with the titular writer for the first time in 13 years, if you don't count Alan Wake's American Nightmare or the Control AWE DLC. Right off the bat, I saw a few warning signs. I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen a long-awaited sequel to a classic horror game in which the narrative is split between the character everyone wants to play as and a completely new woman no one cares about. But, as I said before, no, this is not The Last of Us. People actually like Sam Lake. After many years of Sam Lake working and reworking his ideas for Alan Wake 2, thinking it was going to happen, being told it wasn't going to, and repeating that loop for about 10 years, the game finally picked up traction thanks to the re-emergence of survival horror as a popular genre in gaming, as well as the increased public interest in the IP following Control. The game would release to near universal acclaim in October of 2023, delivering on the much darker and scarier experience that they promised. But it came at a cost. A $70 million cost. You can make 2 1/3 Controls with that money, and it's the latest example of the overinflation of AAA titles that will inevitably lead to a huge market crash. But we've got some time before the industry capsizes. I'd give it a couple years, so dust off your flashlight, load your flare gun, and clear your evidence board so we can give it everything we've got! The game begins with, what else? Narration, as Alan Wake's communication skills are seemingly unfazed by the shining light in his skull. He talks about how people read stories with certain hopes and expectations, but sometimes it's best to not have that hope at all. So, you know, that's a great sign. He then explains that horror stories only contain victims and monsters, and that they rip apart anyone within them, and that this story, against his wishes, is a monster that will eat them alive. Is it too late to leave? I'm not a Vor fan. Like any good game, we start by playing as a naked,
large fat man
who just crawled out of a lake. His confused stumbling is interrupted by haunting visions of shadows, but helpful light arrives just in time. Oh, well hey, on the bright side, he's not confused anymore. After a very impactful card, we join FBI agents Saga Anderson and Alex Casey. Saga showing off rules for thee but not for me by talking to her daughter Logan on the phone while driving.
Good luck, everybody else!
And this is the same Alex Casey that was mentioned to be investigating Alan Wake in Control, and the one that Alan unknowingly based his famous book series on. Casey's not too keen on the similarities. Alex Casey is also one big Max Payne reference, which is fitting since the story of Alan leaving the fictional Alex Casey behind to focus on new stories mirrored creative director Sam Lake's feelings about the Max Payne series, as it had become a Max Payne in the ass. Both Max Payne and Alex Casey are modeled after Sam Lake himself, while their voices are provided by the late James McCaffrey, previously the voice of Thomas Zane and Zachariah Trench. Sam Lake is like the James Gunn of video games. If he likes you, you're gonna work. He appoints Saga as the lead investigator as they arrive at Cauldron Lake to investigate the murder we just got a first-hand view of. Third hand? Second hand? Some number of hands were definitely involved. They're briefed by Deputy Mulligan, who gives them directions to the crime scene being overseen by Deputy Thornton, who are both very minor characters in the first Alan Wake. As the two of them follow the path, Saga decides to review the facts of the case so far in her Mind Place, her version of the Mind Palace where she can organize and analyze clues, look at the map, and other things we'll soon see. The main commonalities in the murders is that all of them had their hearts ripped out and they were very bloated, a result of a dead body being submerged in water for a long time. They investigate the crime and discover that it fits with all the others. They also learn that the victim is former FBI agent Robert Nightingale, that trigger-happy alcoholic from 13 years ago who went missing. We know what happened to him, though. This is the introduction to the main use of the Mind Place case board. There will be several investigations Saga will have to solve, and clues analyzed in the real world can be pinned on the caseboard to help her draw conclusions, solve mysteries, and figure out what to do next. Saga would also like to learn what happened to him, so she uses her intuition in the mind place to profile him. And her intuition is more like directly reading their fucking mind, because the plot's gotta plot somehow. Walking closer to the lake, they find Nightingale's footprints coming from a blocked path, as well as a manuscript page describing their actions. Manuscript pages Saga finds can also be reviewed in the Mind Place, either for you to read or to be read to you by Alan Wake. She profiles Nightingale about the pages and learns that there's a message waiting for them in the hole where Nightingale's heart used to be.
No thanks, I choose life.
They order the body to be taken back to the sheriff's station for a proper exam and head to their car using the shortcut, which takes them right by the Federal Bureau of Control's Cauldron Lake Research Station. The entirety of Cauldron Lake has been fenced off by the FBC for analysis, with their main research facility being the Lake House. Something tells me that will be important at some point. They return to the town of Bright Falls, the main hub area of the game, an expanded and now fully explorable version of the town that Alan fought through 13 years ago. Saga and Casey are operating out of the Elderwood Lodge and head to the Oh Dear Diner to interview the couple that witnessed the murder. They meet Sheriff Tim Breaker outside the diner, the cousin of former Sheriff Sarah Breaker. He's played by Sean Ashmore, who Remedy fans will remember played Jack Joyce in Quantum Break. Do you get it? Quantum Break, Tim Breaker. It's clever. Alex compares Casey notes with the Time Breaker while Saga questions the couple, who say the group of masked killers were calling themselves the Cult of the Tree. She intuitively discovers that the couple stole a necklace of the cult's logo, just in time for her to meet an old friend of ours.
Saga! Saga Anderson, as I live and breathe. I thought we'd never see you back here after that awful, awful thing happened to your baby girl. How are you? I'm sorry. Who are you? I don't know what you're talking about. It's me, silly. Rose. You know me. I don't think I do. And what horrible thing happened to my baby girl? She drowned.
Well, I've seen more awkward reunions. Actually, no I haven't. Good to see Rose hasn't recovered from her encounter with the Dark Presence all those years ago, and seemingly has no career aspirations beyond being a waitress at this one diner. They walk to the sheriff's station and down to the morgue, where Saga finds illegible writing on Nightingale's heart and body, as well as another manuscript page in his heart hole. Didn't like that. This one mentions Nightingale hunting Saga and being unable to see her in the light. Well, it's a good thing he's dead and incapable of hunting and or seeing. Tim seeing the page reminds him of the other pages he's found recently.
Wait.
Sheriff?
What the hell? Show me the clicker. I was not expecting that.
Agent Zombingale is unable to see Saga while she's standing in the light, which also restores some of her health. Unfortunately, it no longer makes nearby enemies disappear, so Saga has to sprint out of the morgue and grab her gun, shooting the monster until he vanishes, marking the end of the first part, and we get our first taste of the many songs made specifically for this game, with the first track being Follow You Into the Dark. And, for fun, I'll be ranking all these songs as they come up while trying my hardest to avoid copyright smiting me. These songs were the result of a partnership between Remedy and Finnish music production studio Fried Music, showing different artists concept art, game cutscenes, and poems written by Sam Lake to give them the general feel of the game and its story. However, they were not told how the songs should sound, so the end result is a combination of a bunch of different genres, and I think they did a great job. Anyway, it seems like the Cult of the Tree is performing ritualistic murders to turn people into monsters. So we should probably try to stop that. Or, since they're FBI, they'll just keep their eyes on him while they focus on wasting even more taxpayer money. But it's okay, they're on their radar. A manuscript page on the floor details how Nightingale is a Taken, if that wasn't clear yet, and that Saga has to return to Cauldron Lake and chase Nightingale through the Overlap, a place where the dark place merges with the real world, though she can only get there by performing a specific ritual. So they're off to the lake to find him and figure out this ritual business. Saga follows the new dark footsteps while Casey stays at the flooded crime scene, bringing her back to the blocked tree. She finds another manuscript page, this one guiding her to the witch's hut. She restores power to the hut, giving her access to the first break room, a safe haven from the darkness where you can save your game and access the shoebox, the place to store items you don't want taking up your precious inventory space. A very smart choice for the item box, because, as established before, shoeboxes are unaffected by different dimensional energies. Another page in the break room helps Saga figure out that the ritual she has to perform involves her finding Nightingale's heart, putting it into the hole in the witch's ladle sign, and reciting the words both on the heart and on the sign.
Is that all?
And his missing heart just so happens to be in the nearby general store. This store sells everything: deer, Taken cultists, painkillers, manuscript pages, inventory expansions, shotguns, and even human hearts.
How'd that get in there?
Saga retrieves the heart and has to head back to the witch's ladle sign. However, now that one Taken finally decided to show his face, they're all following suit, bringing the survival horror to the survival horror game, as Remedy blended the classic Alan Wake mechanics with more traditional survival horror gameplay. Saga has to burn the darkness off of the Taken, which will expose a weak point that, when shot, will do extra damage. Headshots also do extra damage. At this point, Saga only has a pistol and the shotgun from the store, and not a whole lot of ammo for either one. Ammo conservation is a crucial element of survival horror. However, since enemy spawns are random, they will drop ammo when the game senses you're running very low. Also, the flashlight works a bit differently now. It no longer burns the darkness away just by having the beam on the Taken. You have to focus the beam, which takes a segment of the battery life. The battery doesn't recharge either, making batteries yet another precious commodity to conserve, along with the different kinds of health items. There's a bit more to the gameplay, but I'll leave it there for now. Saga completes the ritual and enters the Overlap through the tree, walking through loops of the forest and catching glimpses of another world before being confronted by naked Agent Takengale swinging his big ol' stick around.
Pause.
This boss fight basically tosses you into the deep end of the lake immediately. He's got a huge range thanks to that tree trunk he's wielding, he can zoom right up to you and decimate your health bar, and he'll disappear and reappear after you do enough damage. One touch I really like is how their bodies will actually be torn apart by your bullets. It's a pretty cool visual. Once the Night Agent is relieved of his duties, Saga has an important meeting to attend.
Who are you?
What is this? Who are you?
Hear me.
I'm Saga Anderson, FBI. I can hear you.
Cauldron Lake.
Yes, I'm at Cauldron Lake. Where are you?
How to escape. In danger. The dark presence.
Danger. Thanks. Got it. Hey! Are you okay?
No! It's my fault! It got out with my face! Scratch!
Oh man, we tried to rescue Alan Wake and ended up saving Keanu Reeves instead. Gah, classic mistake.
My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer.
Seriously though, after 13 years, I thought they would have waited until a bit later into the game to have Alan escape, but I'm happy for him regardless. And not just because it gives us the amazing song Wide Awake. It tops the rankings and will probably stay towards the top the entire video.
I was trapped in 1,000 nights with no escape. Nightmares taking me over, and now I'm wide awake. Oh, I died like 1,000,000 times, but the waves I break. The nightmare's finally over, and now I'm wide awake.
With that, Chapter 2, The Heart, is over. Casey arrives and decides to assist Alan in getting to their car, allowing Saga to openly explore Cauldron Lake, with new areas opened up after the flooding receded. One thing that's very nice about this game is that you can return to pretty much every area, so if you don't want to explore now, you don't have to. You won't miss anything you can't come back to later. However, if you do explore, there are a lot of collectibles for you to find. And unlike the first Alan Wake, they all serve a very vital purpose. In Remedy's ongoing quest to make us all kleptomaniacs by hiding near required elements in their optional collectibles.
I don't want to. Too bad it's mandatory.
The manuscript pages are obviously back and done a lot better this time. They don't just spell out the course of the game ahead of time. Most of them fill in extra story details you won't see in the game. There are cult stashes around, and they're the main source of the classic survival horror gameplay mechanic, puzzles. These range from memory games to locating a key to doing actual fucking algebra, but they've all got a lot of resources in them, which you're always in need of. Then there are Alex Casey movie lunchboxes scattered around, indicated by the weird knitted dream catcher things and colored rocks. Inside each one is a cute inspirational message, but sometimes you'll find pages of a spicy Alan Wake ex-author fanfiction.
Ooh, Son Amy, spicy.
Which should immediately give away who made these. They also contain ripped up manuscript fragments, which are used in the Mind Place to upgrade Saga's weapons. Then there are deer heads in certain buildings that Saga can pet as well. Once she's pet all 12, a door in the Elderwood Lodge opens up filled with resources, along with campaign posters for Mayor Setter, who ends up being a dog. Better than this year's candidate, am I right? And that, my friends, is how you make a political joke without upsetting anybody. Finally, there are nursery rhyme puzzles, created by the Federal Bureau of Control as a way to test how the dark place makes fiction come true. Saga has to find different little dolls and solve the rhymes by putting the dolls in specific spots. Solving one and following what's different will reward Saga with a charm for her charm bracelet. These will provide different bonuses depending on which ones you have equipped. However, there are some places Saga still can't get into yet, as they're either locked or bolted off. If you've played even a single Resident Evil game before, you know what she's going to need. Except maybe Resident Evil 6. Don't play that one. As Saga makes her way back, if she goes through the shortcut, she'll hear the FBC research station alarm blaring. Checking inside it will show her the exact same warning that Jesse and Langston saw at the end of Control's AWE DLC. Saga calls her husband and daughter on the way back to Bright Falls, hearing that Logan hit her head in the shower and almost drowned. But hey, she's still alive. Take that, Rose! Back at the lodge, Casey and Saga examine their caseboard and sip their coffee in unison, just like they did in the Return trailer in Quantum Break. Something about Saga looks different, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
It's black!
Saga briefly interviews Alan, asking if he wrote the story they're finding pages of, a story named Return, with the byline violently scratched out. Alan's attempts to remember what happened bring us down to the dark place for Initiation 1, late night. He wakes up in a green room for the talk show In Between with Mr. Door. Alan looks into the TV and we see the first instance of how Alan Wake 2 merges gameplay with live action, something Remedy have been experimenting with for a long time now. They went overboard with full-length TV episodes in Quantum Break, we got the Darling videos and Threshold Kids episodes in Control, and now we've got Alan Wake on Mr. Door's show. And eventually some more, too. Alan Wake is once again played by Ilka Villi and voiced by Matthew Peretta, while Mr. Door is played by David Harewood, who I know as Martian Manhunter in the Arrowverse. Alan is there to promote his new book, the long-awaited sequel to Departure, Initiation, a book about Alan Wake searching the dark place in search of a manuscript he doesn't remember writing. And wouldn't you know it, Alan doesn't remember writing this one either.
Initiation hits the shelves tomorrow. After this, I'm sure we'll all be eagerly awaiting the culmination of this Hero's Journey trilogy of yours. A book called Return, perhaps. Yeah, thank you for one of the strangest interviews of my entire career, Alan. All this talk of meta narratives. Half expecting to disappear once this scene ends.
As Alan looks for a way out of the studio, he can find a book by Casper Darling about the many worlds theory, in a TV episode that doesn't quite come through. His escape attempt is interrupted by the minor inconvenience of death. He awakes in the writer's room, vaguely remembering having to write a story to escape, backed up by messages he left for himself Memento style about needing to get back to Alice and to beware Scratch. So Alan is physically trapped in that writer's room, but by writing this story, Initiation, he can essentially astral project himself into the dark place formed by his thoughts. He starts back on the set of In Between with Mr. Door, featuring on this episode with Sam Lake, the actor who plays Alex Casey in the film adaptations of his books. So Sam Lake, the guy who created this whole series, plays Alex Casey, but also plays an actor named Sam Lake who plays Alex Casey in movies. Alan's escape isn't interrupted by death this time. Instead, it's aided by a familiar face. I don't know what odds he did to end up in the dark place, but it's good to see he hasn't given up on his janitorial hobbies. He tells Alan that his key to escape is in a shoebox in the basement, which is an angel lamp suspiciously missing its light switch. The lamp is one of the main mechanics of Alan's sections, and a very unique one at that. The lamp can absorb light sources, which will then change the environment around the light. The absorbed light is saved in the lamp and can be passed to sources that need light, which will also change the environment. It's a great mechanic that provides for some very creative puzzles. Alan uses the lamp to find a way forward, coming across the premiere episode of the second season of his favorite TV show.
The dark place wants to drown me. I'm losing myself. I have to fight it. I have to remember the clicker. The light switch. I lost it, but I have the lamp now. The lamp the switch was cut from. This place is a nightmare. Not real, and yet more real than anything. The danger and the horror are real. It feeds off my mind, twisting whatever it takes into psychotic reality. I'm trapped here. I write to escape. I've tried this many times, written countless stories, forgotten how many. I keep failing. But I must keep trying. I use the story to dive deeper. Every word I write is a step forward on this spiral in the darkness. I dive to the bottom to find the answer, the map, and the key, and the compass. It's combined to form a door leading out. But how do you open a door that's not a door? At the bottom of an ocean, that's not an ocean. And a lake, that's not a lake.
Good to see it's no less confusing than before. The song that plays at the end of every chapter of Initiation is pretty much the same, just slightly different versions of the song This Road.
Some say that it lives forever, this road that I lose you on every time. Some say that it lives forever, this road.
It's not bad, but doesn't compare to a lot of the great songs this game has to offer. Alan emerges from the studio in what's supposed to be a nightmarish reflection of New York City, but actually looks like a nicer version of New York City. I mean, there's no rats, no homeless people, no gang violence, just a ringing phone. The mystery caller tells Alan that he needs to go to Caldera Street Station, also saying that they've had this conversation before. Alan's just forgotten again. Alan's got nothing better to do, so he listens as we enter Initiation to Casey. Wake's initiation to Casey is meeting him in an alleyway and being asked about a murder cult using Alan's books as inspiration. He then dies, allowing Alan to take his gun and flashlight, assuming his position as the detective hero of the story. That's not the real Casey, by the way. It's an echo of the Casey from Alan's books, which he got inspiration from by seeing glimpses of the real Alex Casey, the one with Saga. With Casey dead and Alan in his place, he's able to be the protagonist of Initiation. Alan needs a second light to enter the subway, so he has to explore more of the dark place to find one. And I have to say that I love the design of this dark version of New York. It looks like Gotham City and is covered in graffiti taunting Alan about Scratch and how he failed Alice. I do not, however, like the combat as much. Alan's combat is very similar to Saga's with one key difference. You don't know who the enemies are. The dark place is filled with shadows, the remnants of the Taken from 2010 who were pulled back into Cauldron Lake after the dark presence was defeated. Most of them are harmless, but the enemies are hidden within them, and most of the time you won't know it until they're smacking you upside the head or jumping on you. It gets annoying. Though there is a stealth element that Saga doesn't have. With the flashlight off, Alan can attempt to walk past them undetected, as they react to light and noise, but not the sight of Alan. On his path to find a light, Alan can hear strange humming in the distance. Following that will bring him to Tim Breaker, now trapped in the dark place, who says the two of them have met down here already, but Alan keeps forgetting. He's made a map of all the points of interest in the area, Finding him in each new section of the Dark Place is very useful, as his map will mark all the collectibles in that area. I say that, but there's only really 3. There are echoes, which are just Alex Casey monologues, there are supply stashes full of valuable resources, and the most important one, words of power. These have bright yellow arrows guiding you to them, only visible in the light, and they are how Alan gets upgrades, as each one will give him an upgrade point for a specific branch. Very worth your time. Also, you cannot get enough manuscript fragments and words of power in one run to upgrade everything, so make your selections carefully. That's not all Tim is doing down here though. He's also looking into Warlin Door, and doesn't believe a talk show host is one of the many disguises he'd take. I guess he hasn't seen all the advertisements around for his show. This is mostly a big reference to Quantum Break, tying it into the universe of Alan Wake and Control in a loose enough way so as not to violate the IP that Microsoft owns.
I think we just found our loophole.
I mentioned before that Sean Ashmore plays both Tim Breaker and the main character of Quantum Break, Jack Joyce, but that's not the only crossover. Warlin Door was originally supposed to be played by the great Lance Reddick before his passing in March of 2023. Reddick had previously assumed the role of Martin Hatch in Quantum Break, and it's not hard to see the connection. Flip the M and T in Martin and it looks like Warlin. And both door and hatch are words for something that allow you to move from one room to another. Tim says the mysterious Mr. Door is taunting him in his dreams, as he dreams of alternate versions of himself in different scenarios, seeing different versions of the same people, like Door and an unknown red-headed woman. Except anyone who played Control knows that he's probably talking about the only important redhead in this universe, which also ties back to Quantum Break, as Courtney Hope played both Jesse Faden and Beth Wilder. If you're confused, think of it like the multiverse from the Arrowverse or the MCU. Take your pick, it doesn't matter. Same people, different names, and different stories. Opening the door on Mr. Door leads to quite a lot more doors that we're not going to be opening for quite a while, though it should be obvious by now that he's very indortant. Once Alan gets the light and enters the subway, he gets a flash of inspiration for his story. A detective investigating the cult-related disappearance of an FBI agent in the subway, bringing about the best mechanic in the game. With that idea, the real Alan in the writer's room changes the plot of the story he's writing to alter the environment his projected form is in, usually as a way to progress further. A literal representation of writer's block in altering your story to overcome it. Also, to further the idea that this version of the Dark Place has been conjured by Alan Wake's mind, the posters on the walls transcribe his narration from the first game. He continues deeper and gets the inspiration for the Cult of the Word, a murder cult that based their crimes off of the writing in his books, led by Mr. Scratch. He's able to write himself further through the subway, reaching the end of the line and writing about the cult's ritual to summon Scratch. This awakens the Dark Presence, which chases Alan into the now opened overlap where he discovers Agent Nightingale's body. Now in the overlap, we get the other side of Alan and Saga's inconsistent conversation. And when you combine the two sides, this is what you get.
An FBI agent? Who are you?
What is this? Who are you?
She can hear me.
I'm Saga Anderson, FBI. I can hear you.
This is Alan Wake. I'm trapped here. The Dark Place. Under Cauldron Lake.
Yes, I'm at Cauldron Lake. Where are you?
I'm trying to escape. I'm making progress, but I'm in danger. The Dark Presence. Help me. Please, help me.
Alan's conversation with Saga and him getting closer to the real world summons the high-rise he and Alice lived in. In front of Parliament Tower is a statue in Alan Wake's memory, which defeats my theory that Thomas Zane might be Alan's dad, because Zane went missing in 1970, 7 years before Alan Wake was born. You may think I'm crazy for having that theory, but just you wait. Stepping inside their apartment and the flash of the cameras begins Initiation 3, Haunting, and we'll just ignore that this looks nothing like their apartment from before. Though it is a lot nicer. Beyond his study with a strange yet familiar symbol on his door, Alan watches a video Alice made. She gives a brief overview of how she perceived the events of the first game. She has no memory of being trapped in the Dark Place. To her, Alan just disappeared after the argument in the cabin, supposedly drowning. A few years later, she started being haunted by the sound of typewriter keys and a monster wearing Alan's face, setting up cameras all over the apartment to take photos of it. one of which we saw in Control. These photos are the centerpiece of her new art exhibition she coincidentally named The Dark Place. The end of the video takes him into the writer's room, him calling it a loop right back to where he started. Inside he finds a dead version of himself and the title page for Return with the name scratched out, which ends Initiation 3 and snaps us back to reality. Saga and Casey interview Alan about Scratch and their role in the story. Alan says they need to get their hands on the clicker before Scratch does, as he'll use it to bring about the ending he wants, which is taking over the world, and that the visions he saw of Saga when in the Dark Place helped him escape. Scratch saw that she was helping him and edited the story to get to her. Luckily, Alan has a page on hand that says the Cult of the Tree has the clicker, and it's hiding somewhere in the neighboring town of Watery. From this point on is when things get confusing. Yeah, I know, like they haven't been already. Both Saga and Alan have different stories to go through, and the player can switch between the two pretty much whenever they want. You can follow Saga's journey through Bright Falls as a part of Return, or you can follow Alan's looping struggle to escape the Dark Place in Initiation. I thought for quite a while on how to approach this, because it's not as simple as you may think, but I settled on covering all of Alan's stuff first and then switching to Saga, because Initiation comes before Return in the hero's journey. Also, Alan already got out, so all the stuff in Initiation happens before Saga stuff in Return, right? Back to the Dark Place we go! Alan wakes up in the writer's room, remembering finding the title page of Return, but not remembering writing it, so he needs to write himself back to it. Most importantly, he didn't lose all his memories this time. The second draft of Initiation brings us to Initiation 4, We Sing, with Alan back on the set of In Between with Mr. Door, who has a special presentation for this episode called The Story of the Journey of Alan Wake, the Musical, which is a fancy way to say we're about to bear witness to the greatest thing this game has to offer and one of the greatest moments in gaming history.
What the hell? From what I gathered, you grew up nice and sheltered with mama's pretty stories and your own made-up theory. And mama gave me a magic clicker. Well, yes, I think it's true and fair to say.
I don't even know how to properly describe what this is or how amazing it is. Alan walks through this soundstaged labyrinth of giant screens playing different elements from the music video for the kick-ass song Herald of Darkness by the Old Gods of Asgard, a comprehensive retrospective of Alan Wake's life up to this point. This is normally when I'd play a clip of the song with a funny clip of someone dancing, but this time they did it for me, as Herald of Darkness's chorus comes with a choreographed dance sequence that rivals Peacemaker. The song is split into 4 acts. Act 1 covers Alan's childhood when his mom gave him the clicker to fight his nightmares. Act 2 is about Alan's struggles with his immense success and popularity as a writer. Act 3 summarizes the events of Alan Wake 1, fighting through Bright Falls to rescue Alice. And Act 4 wraps things up with him being trapped in the Dark Place and needing to write his escape. There just aren't enough good things to say about this section. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before and manages to somehow feel right at home in a psychological horror game, as it's both Mr. Door and the Old Gods of Asgard helping Alan remember who he is and what he's here to do, though they may have slightly different motives for doing so. This song also made it click in my brain that the entire first game is a metaphor for Alan's dark side threatening to ruin his life and his marriage.
Darkness within him held her hostage. Had he seen her drowning? Would have saved her from the darkness of the lake.
Oh yeah, yeah, this is also where Alan equips the flare gun. Even better. I also have to give Poets of the Fall their flowers for creating this song. Not only is the song itself amazing and obviously at the top of the list, but they also created so many instrumental loops that perfectly flow between the main portions of the song, as the specific lyrics will activate at specific points. So in between then, it's just awesome instrumentals. They also created so many different versions of this song that are all available on Spotify. There's the regular version that's 13 minutes long, the edit used for the official music video that's 8 minutes long, a radio edit that's 4 minutes long, different versions of the regular 13-minute version, including an instrumental one, a version with no lead guitar, and an instrumental version with no lead guitar, and then there's the complete edit, which is 30 minutes long. Finally, I want to bring attention to the great performances of David Harewood, Ilka Villi, and Matthew Peretta. David's singing and weird facial expressions are amazing, but nothing beats Ilka's near constant "what the f*** is going on" face, and the iconic way in which he commits to those dance moves. And Matthew does a great job singing in his parts as well. The fact that the duo of Ilka and Matthew didn't win a single award for their performance as Alan, but the actress behind Saga did, is absurd to me. Saga's fine and all, but I didn't think her performance was particularly great, especially since there are several times where you can clearly hear her trying to hide her English accent.
Cauldron Lake.
But I'm getting sidetracked. Let's just enjoy the ride this rock is taking us on. Sam Lake being there to dance in the musical scene he wrote for his own game just makes it even better. I feel like if any other game director had this level of self-insertion into their stories, it would get crapped all over. But Sam seems to be one of the last big names in the gaming industry who actually cares about what he puts out, and isn't just doing whatever he thinks will make the most money.
We've got to have money.
This was a 10 out of 10 segment, almost to the game's detriment, as nothing can compare to that. But that's not to say there's nothing else here to enjoy. Like, look at Ati having a great time mopping that carpet. It's time to focus up and move on. After all, Alan's still trapped in the ever-shifting hell dimension of nightmares and monsters. Alan steps outside and gets another phone call. After our unknown caller finds out that Alan remembers their previous conversation for once, he invites him into the nearby Ocean View Hotel. I don't exactly know how it's connected to the Ocean View Motel from Control, but I'm sure we'll find out at some point. Also, as a nice little reference, the Ocean View Hotel is located on 3 Cord Street, and if you remember, the way Jesse accessed and left the Ocean View Motel in Control was by pulling the light cord 3 times. The hotel refuses to let Alan in, so he has to find the Batman way in, which takes him down the alley for another confrontation with Alex Casey, who once again dies. Remember, Alan said he had looped back to where he had started, so everything that happened before is happening again, just slightly different. He has to explore the rooftops of the dark place to find a way into a location, along the way coming across Alex Casey and taking his spot after he dies. Just wanted to keep you in the loop. Initiation 5665 starts with Alan on the rooftops near the hotel, following signs from the Mirror Peak bar to find his way inside, as well as a shotgun available from the bar for the low price of $19. I wonder what happens when you order that.
Alakablam!
Alan makes it inside and locates room 665 as instructed, turning on a film projector and transporting us back to live action for this most important meeting.
You're the one who's been calling me.
Indeed. I'm Tom Zane. Welcome to the House of Zane.
The poet. The diver. You look like me. How the hell?
Or maybe you look like me, you handsome devil. The diver was a beloved character I played in one of my films. I'm a filmmaker, a celebrated auteur.
I need answers. Why is Return so important? What?
Alan, you always get worked up like this. Come on, I'll fix you a drink. You and me, Alan. We're in this together. Two artists collaborating, remember? Crafting the keys to our escape. Your magnum opus, Return, and its companion piece, my film.
Following a montage of Alan and Thomas writing Return to the set of the, frankly, crap The Happy Song by Poets of the Fall, Zane says Alan needs to return to Parliament Tower and get to Return before Scratch does, and that there's a murder site in the hotel that will help him do so. Then there's this.
Hello?
They're all yours.
That little cameo from our old friends is a reference to the Control AWE DLC, when Jessie sees through the spiral door in the Ocean View Motel, and what she sees and what we just experienced are pretty similar.
I'm your friend Tom. Tom Zane. There's nothing to worry about.
Tom. The poet. The diver. You look different.
That was just a role. A character. The protagonist I played in my old film. I'm a filmmaker. An auteur like yourself.
But yeah, Thomas Zane is looking and sounding a lot different than before. Though for someone of a liberal arts profession in the 1970s, this feels more accurate. And if you're patiently awaiting an explanation for why Tom and Alan are identical, don't hold your breath. It's entirely possible that both Alan Wake games end up being films made by Thomas Zane starring himself as Alan Wake as an effort to escape the dark place, but I think people would fucking hate that because no one cares about Thomas Zane as much as or more than Alan Wake. Regardless, Alan once again has to write his way to a murder site. This time the story is Alex Casey / Alan himself investigating a cult murder that took place in the hotel during an immersive theater play about a murder cult. This game doesn't make it very clear if the Cult of the Word is real or only exists inside Initiation, because the real Alex Casey remembers investigating the Cult of the Word in New York City a few years ago. That investigation is what led him to taking this one, and there are FBC documents about them. But those could all be false memories as a result of the story they're in now. Or Alan writing about the Cult of the Word then made them real in the real world. I think it's most likely that the Cult of the Word were real in the sense that they were like a theater production based off of the urban legend of Alan Wake's disappearance, and Alan is seeing visions of them and visions of the Cult of the Tree, and using those visions to create a story where they are actually an evil murder cult. Or he's just seeing glimpses of the Cult of the Tree and the future investigation into them, the one going on in the real world now, and using that as inspiration for the Cult of the Word. I don't know, and I'm pretty sure only one man does. He writes about a haunted hotel where something was summoned in the ballroom, coming across some familiar looking symbols, and a familiar looking face. The unfolding story is about a group of actors holding an interactive play in the hotel about a murder cult, only for their starring Grand Master to be played by an actual killer who infiltrated the cult to reach and kill a specific woman. Alan gets into the room where the murder took place, hearing a song and getting visions of a record in a bathtub under the body of the old woman. But the woman disappears with the record, greedy bitch, and Alan's sent back into black for another meeting with Saga. We'll hear the full thing once Saga reaches that point. For now, it's time for Alan to head back to his apartment, bringing us to Initiation 6, Return. Their apartment looks a bit different than it did the first time, and Alice's computer is filled with emails from Barry Wheeler about his career in Hollywood, and trying to check in on her. His absence from this game is definitely strange, though somewhat understandable from a character perspective, as Alan doesn't want his friends and family to be targeted by Scratch more than they already are. I just missed that jacket, man. The next part of Alice's exhibition is a walkthrough of her grieving journey. Love is weakness, weakness is clarity, clarity is purpose, purpose is strength, strength is fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Alan once again enters Alice's video to enter the writer's room, now featuring 100% less dead Alan Wakes. Alan finds the fully written Return manuscript, written by Scratch about the dark presence escaping and taking over the world. Alan has no choice but to scratch parts out and make edits, writing in Saga Anderson as the story's hero after seeing her in those visions. Scratch, we just started advertising the lack of dead Alan Wakes. Now what are we gonna do? Wake's back in the writer's room, now having to write a third draft of Initiation to get back to his study and stop Scratch from undoing the edits he made to return. The loop begins where it always does, in between with Warland Door, though it seems they've got a bit of a flooding problem. Let's see how Door decides to kick off Initiation 7, Masks.
It was to indulge you, but we can stop pretending now.
Masks come off.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. I don't even think you know who's under your mask. You are so lucky. You know. There are so many people helping you. Armies of people. Myself. Your wife.
Alice. I need to get to her. She's in danger.
She is. Because of you. And so is someone important to me, someone you pulled into this. You keep opening doors. Peeking in. Reaching through to get what you want, and that puts you in my path. Maybe you will make it through this time. This has gone on long enough. This and our night springs, it was a nice distraction. The next time we meet, the circumstances will be very different. And you would do well to return the favor by playing your part. Or stay out of my way, Mr. Wake.
Obviously, there was more to Mr. Door than it seemed, and he doesn't show up again at all after this. However, we'll get some more information as we go on that may give us a clue towards why he's targeting Alan. On the subject of clues, Ahti tells Alan that there are photos waiting for him in the basement shoebox.
A bullet of light to push the darkness away.
These were Alice's photos.
Yeah, those sound important. Now let's get out of here so we can continue this looping madness.
I just want to go home. I've written so much. I write. There's nothing left. It's all gone. I don't know how to write. All the words are gone. There's no more words. Where do they go? Did I eat the words? I recognize these words. Who are the words moving? Oh, this is familiar. Oh, why is this familiar? I've been here before. Have I said this before? I've read this somewhere. Where am I? Who am I? Alan Wake. Alan Wake? That's a strange name. Eh? Wait, that sounds like a character's name. I write the name up. I make that name up. I don't want to be a character. I don't want to be the story. Just write these other story. Ram these words down your throat. Make you choke on these words. Oh, I know the words. Secret words. You can't take the words. I eat the words. These are my words. Stop using the words. The words. I'll tell the word. This isn't your story. It never was your story. The story is a monster. The story will eat you alive. The darkness is coming. The darkness inside. This is my story. You're in my story. Get out of my story. You are a character in my story. You can't stop the story. This story will go on forever. There's no escape. You will never escape. You won't drown here. You're stuck in a room. You don't have a clue. You're lost. You lost the plot. I'll show you.
Not to add to Alan's paper-thin sanity, but what are the fashion rules in the Dark Place? Like, when did Alan change his outfit? And where is he getting his hair cut? There's no way that his hair grows so slow that it's only that long after 13 years. And don't even get me started on the guy who's been down here for 53 years. Anyway, Alan needs to find another murder site if he wants to get back to his apartment. So it's time to pay Zane another visit in the Ocean View Motel.
You'd given up. You stopped writing. You said it was too dangerous, that we didn't deserve to get out. And then he showed up. Scratch. He promised to write. To get me the hell out of here. But then, when he finished, he took a return and left me behind.
It's still here, and so is he.
I know I fucked up. But you can still catch him. Before he gets out, before he gets to your wife. And when you get to him, don't hesitate. Kill the bastard for what he did to us.
I don't even know how to approach that.
Oh, mercy. Thousands have gone missing.
beyond the labyrinth of me. When you're lost in your own company. And cut! Oh. Now that is drama.
What the fuck?
I feel you, Alan. Personally, I think this means one of three things. One, the Thomas Zane that Alan interacts with could be a projection of Zane, just like Alan is a projection of himself from within the writer's room, which is why he wakes up after being shot. Two, it's just impossible to die in the dark place for whatever reason. Or three, this movie is just as much a part of the story as Alan's writing. It could be that this is more art being made real in the dark place so that Alan gets the next location and the theater ticket while also adding more drama to the story to make it more real. I'm not sure, and in case you haven't noticed yet, this game isn't too keen on answers. Initiation 8, Zane's film, takes Alan to the Poet's Cinema, which is playing Thomas Zane's film Nightless Night, the companion film to Return that Zane mentioned earlier. If the plot of that is anything like these games, I'll pass it on over to Foundflix. Once inside, Alan is inspired to write about the theater being an initiation ground for the cult of the word, with the cult being obsessed with Thomas Zane's Nightless Night film, complete with dirty cops who cover up the cult's work, who are this loop's unfortunate murder victims. He learns that the Grandmaster is waiting for him in the projection booth, and follows echoes of Casey through the looping rooms. It's not all bad, as we get to learn why Alan is writing Initiation in the first place.
Return. I was writing. Return. Something went wrong. I've written it so many times and it always fails. It fails. I'm doing something wrong. I forget. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Am I wrong somehow? Or am I missing something? Skipping over some vital beat? Or did I have to write? Sure, of course. I mean, that's a given. That's a given. I wrote departure in that word. That word fine. Maybe there's a missing step before return. What's between departure and return? The tasks, the challenge, the lesson, initiation, yeah, I haven't written that. To master this place, to set things up, can't go to return before initiation. That's right, that feels right. Initiation. I have to write initiation.
The echoes start getting more invasive too, asking Alan if he is just a fictional character in someone else's story. Remedy, I swear to God, if that's what you go with, I'll complain very loudly on the internet. Alan finds the murder site of the two cops, the moose mask disappearing to allow him to once again communicate with Saga to end the episode. As Alan emerges from the theater, he can actually watch Thomas Zane's Nightless Night film, a film where Zane himself plays the writer Alan Wake. Look, I don't know if Alan Wake is a creation of Thomas Zane, if Thomas Zane is a creation of Alan Wake, or if Alan Wake is a multiverse doppelganger of Thomas Zane like Tim Breaker and Jack Joyce. Everything involving Zane just creates even more questions, and frankly we have more important matters at hand, like getting back into Parliament Tower and finishing the Return rewrites. But first, a phone call.
Hello?
Hello.
It wasn't Zane. It wasn't Scratch either. Huh? You're me? Me? I don't understand. There's a lot I don't understand.
The dark place operates in loops. Time is a story. I'm calling you from a different point in that story.
From the future? I'm never getting out of here, am I?
Yes, you will. And no, you won't. And that is by your own choice.
What does that mean?
I'm sorry for what you'll have to go through. Alice's photos you found from the shoebox in the talk show basement. Before you can go to Parliament Tower, you must put them in the shoebox at her statue at the plaza. To help you, to help Alice, to help Saga Anderson.
I'm my own Deus Ex Machina? Really?
Yeah, we're not actually getting into Parliament Tower yet, as Alan putting Alice's photos in the shoebox is the end of Initiation for now. So now let's return to Return and see if it's a page turner or a book returner. Brief recap, Saga has to head to the nearby town of Watery to find the clicker, which is currently in possession of the Cult of the Tree. If Scratch gets it before they do, he'll use it to take over the world. And Alan needs it to change the story before it's too late, as the story will become more and more true as time goes on and the plot of it unfolds. Return 3, Local Girl takes Saga into Watery, which is basically Remedy's love letter to their native Finland. The Watery seems to have a bit of a flooding problem as well. Watery, more like
underwatery.
You beat me by 1 second.
Saga can head into Suomi Hall, and if you want hard evidence that this whole town is a postcard of Finland, Suomi is Finnish for Finland. Inside, she can see everyone's favorite otherworldly janitor singing the song Yöten Ö.
The fuck you say?
Finnish for Nightless Night. Did I say that right? I don't know. And yes, that's the same name as Thomas Zane's weird-ass movie, which Ahti is in. Regardless, Martti Suosalo's performance as Ahti is as fantastic as his singing voice. Nightless Night isn't my favorite song on the soundtrack, but dang, that man can sing. Also, the postcard Ahti leaves Jesse in control is for this very town, and you can visit the sauna pictured in it, complete with the sauna staple of old men and not enough clothing. As Saga walks through Watery, she encounters more people claiming she's been here before, including the Koskela brothers Ilmo and Jaakko, saying she used to live in the Watery trailer park and left after her daughter drowned, which is what Rose also said happened back in the diner. Saga can find several of the Koskela brothers commercials around Bright Falls, and they're certainly something, alright?
So, take a sip of our Oh Dear Diner organic coffee and let the adventure begin! Hold on for dear life on the Espresso Express! Oh! Soak in some local history at the Huotari Well, where 2 serial killers once hid the disemboweled bodies of their murder victims. It's not haunted. No. Come join Mocha Moose and the goats at our amusement park petting zoo. Just don't share your coffee with the goats. Seriously, stop feeding our goats coffee. Seriously, it's not amusing. Take in amazing views from the Slow Roaster Ferris wheel. I can almost see the Watery Lighthouse trailer park. This is so much fun! And finish off at our beautiful gift shop where seniors and children under 10 receive a 9% discount on keychains and propane tanks. Welcome to Coffee World. We guarantee you'll jaw a great time.
They tell her that the spare key to her trailer is in the nearby Coffee World amusement park, and with the road flooded, Saga has to take the forest walk to get there. And it's on this path that Saga encounters the first Taken Thrower. As the name implies, they throw weapons from a distance. Also, they can instant transmission away from your line of sight, and can split in half when their darkness is burned away, which is very annoying. Saga also meets Taken Wolves in the forest. They also suck. They'll stalk Saga and pounce on her and take way too many shots to put down. But hey, Saga can find a crossbow and a cult stash to make animal control a bit easier. Saga needs a screwdriver to get inside the locked gift shop, meaning she has to explore the shoddy amusement park to find it, in what is probably the creepiest location in Saga's portion of this game. The screwdriver can also bypass many locks around Bright Falls that Saga doesn't have a key to. If you can't use a screwdriver on it, odds are it's because you'll find the key somewhere. With key in hand, she can leave Coffee World and head over to the trailer park to meet some familiar friends.
It's not true. The lies to hurt you and make you weak. Don't believe a word. You must stop it before it turns real. Don't be part of the story. Make the story.
How do you know about the story?
Same as you, of course, sweetie pie. We are family. The Andersons. I am your great uncle Odin. And this is your long-lost mortified Thor.
Well, they both look and sound a lot different than they did 13 years ago, but it's good to see they're just as crazy. Saga investigates what is supposedly her trailer and finds lots of evidence suggesting that she did in fact live there at some point, along with a photo showing the clicker in front of the Koskela brothers' nearby Kalevala Knights motorcycle club, and a newspaper headline about her daughter's death, unable to prove it's not true. though she steadfastly believes that its return affecting reality and people's memories. As she leaves the trailer, she sees glimpses of deputies Mulligan and Thornton, now taken and guiding her to the clicker. She finds lots of cult imagery in the warehouse, basically confirming that Ilmo and Yako are members of the Cult of the Tree. They also have some FBC documents, like one that shows that the cult's logo was inspired by the seal of the Federal Bureau of Control, and someone's observations while tracking Rose, much in the way that Jesse was tracked before. There's also notes from the cult about how the ritual they performed on Nightingale was interrupted, as they didn't get to use the clicker. Now why does that sound vaguely familiar? The clicker disappears before Saga can grab it, and a manuscript tells her that she'll find it in a nearby overlap in the hands of Mulligan and Thornton. The ritual to enter the overlap involves a Deerfest parade float this time, with Saga having to find the different parts around Coffee World to finish it, including the moose skull that Alan touched during initiation. Because the murder sites that Alan uncovered in the Dark Place by building a story up to them are mirrored with the taken Saga encounters in the overlaps. First it was Nightingale, now it's the two dirty cops. Saga is guided through the overlap by Ati's song right to the dual deputies and a boss fight that really sucks until you know what to do. Even then, it's no walk in the park. You might need to call a mulligan on your first try. Once they're down, Saga has another chat with Alan. Since the Dark Place exists outside of the rules of our universe, the timeline can get a bit strange. For example, this is Saga's second time talking to Alan in the overlaps, but it's the third time Alan is talking to her. Remember, the cops were the third and last murder scene Alan found, but it's the second that Saga is experiencing, so this is their full conversation.
Wake?
Saga Anderson, listen. I've been tricked. Scratch wrote returned. I tried to fix the story, but he stopped me before I reached the end. He has it now. It's the key to escape.
What do you mean, escape? You're already out. So is Scratch.
I need to stop him. I need to stop him before he gets out. He's after Alice. I'm still trapped, but I'm making progress. I wrote you in to be the story's hero. Scratch made a horror story. I need to match the genre. It has to be dark, but the hero can break through, save her family, save us all.
Save her family? Are you talking about my family?
Yes. Whatever you're doing, it's working. You just need to keep going.
Did you put my family in the horror story?
As Return 3 ends, we get the song Superhero.
If I'm a superhero,
not bad, but not great either. It goes above Follow You Into the Dark, but below Nightless Night. Saga emerges with the clicker in hand, so she can either head straight back to Bright Falls with it, or explore the new areas of Watery that have opened up now that the flooding has receded. Back at the Elderwood Lodge, Casey's interrogation of Alan is interrupted by the cult shooting up the place to get to the writer. Alan wants to help, but is paralyzed by Scratch's presence nearby, waking up later covered in blood as we begin Return 4, No Chance. Alan runs through the forest to catch up with Casey, but is once again incapacitated by a scratching headache. Luckily, Saga arrives just in time to prevent him from being stabbed, unveiling Ilmo Koskela as a cult member at the same time. Right as the Federal Bureau of Control arrives to imprison Alan and take over the case, because it's time for the FBI to be the ones upstaged and taken over by a bigger organization in a murder mystery for once. And that's the end of Return 4. Short and sweet. In case you didn't watch my review of Control or play it yourself, the Federal Bureau of Control is responsible for the handling and cover-up of paranatural occurrences like these, referred to as Altered World Events, or AWEs for short. They have a special interest in Alan Wake as they believe he's a para-utilitarian, someone capable of bonding to objects of power and being granted special powers by them. In this instance, the OOP he's bound to is the clicker, and it gives him the power to permanently alter reality to reflect the story he wrote. As for Return 4's song, Lost at Sea, it's not one of my favorites.
Is that a lighthouse with a dying light, or a reflection of my glowing eyes? Am I more than just a dream?
It's going above This Road, but below Follow You Into the Dark. Since she's in the area and has newfound free time in her hands, Saga decides to visit Tor and Odin Anderson at the Valhalla nursing home to see what they know about the clicker, and maybe find out if they're actually family or not. Anderson isn't exactly a rare last name after all. Saga gets a call from Odin on her way there, and he knows she's coming, but a commotion ends their call before she can finish speaking. She arrives at the Valhalla nursing home built by our good friend Barry Wheeler, and sees it's run by our known person, Rose, who is being very secretive on Tor's location. Almost as secretive as the identity of Saga's dad. She does allow Saga to say hi to the other residents though, like Norman here, who I'm choosing to believe is a reference to the late great comedian Norm Macdonald.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Because his name is Norman Macdonald, but that could just be a coincidence. Then there's Mandy May, who helps us finally prove that Rose is the one behind the Alex Casey lunchboxes, saying she makes all the knit work for her. If you need further proof, Rose has one of those lunchboxes in her office, and another Alan shrine nearby with drawings that are objectively very good. Though I do wonder why Rose's love triangle fanfiction between herself, Alan Wake, and Mr. Scratch didn't become real. Does the Dark Place get to choose which works of fiction are made real? It can't be because she doesn't have a connection to the Dark Place, because, you know, this. Anyway, Ati is also here, so I guess this is where he goes after his shift to the FBC. Oh man, that's one hell of a commute. Radio host Pat Maine is also living here now, and Saga overhears him talking about a World War II bunker built where the Valhalla nursing home is now. A bunker that the teens of Bright Falls like to hang out in, and have named the Ocean View Motel and Spa. Your guess is as good as mine as for how it connects to the others, though it's clear this place is connected as well, as a newspaper clipping reveals that Thomas Zane established the Ocean View Hotel in this very building. Saga finds Odin in no condition to talk, but is able to communicate with him in her mind place, revealing to her that she's a seer like them, which is how they can remember the real world unaffected by the story. He also says the Dark Presence is trying to take both him and Odin, and to beware Cynthia Weaver. The former Lady of the Light also took residence here. I wonder how she's doing.
This will put a smile back on your face, my dear.
Sorry?
Alright, time to kill an old lady. All these weird old people, I need to talk to someone sane again.
Aha! That one almost snuck by me. Message received, loud and clear. You can always count on your #1 fan.
Yeah, normalcy is relative anyway. Rose advises against Saga going into the neighboring wellness center to find Tor, but acquiesces, warning her that she can hurt herself in the dark. The wellness center is this game at its most Resident Evil, but they don't really take full advantage of it. Not a lot happens beyond solving puzzles to get further into the center in an effort to find Tor. Saga can get a hunting rifle though, so that's nice. She'll need it too, as the wellness center is where we're introduced to the most annoying enemy type in the game, Taken divers. I like their design of being reflected in water and both floating and walking on their hands, but my god are they annoying. They have a lot of health, deal a lot of damage as their attacks land, and they can disappear, only visible by the rippling water that shows where they're going. What is it with Remedy and enemies that are nearly impossible to see until they're eating your entire face bone? Saga tracks Tor through the other end of the wellness center, watching him disappear in the pond as Rose tries to talk him out of it, and yells at Cynthia Weaver like a disappointed parent.
Cynthia Weaver, I know it's you! This kind of behavior is not okay!
Saga convinces Rose that she's the hero that's going to save Alan Wake once and for all, which makes Rose more than eager to help however she can, sharing a manuscript page describing the ritual Saga must perform, and giving us some backstory on how Cynthia, someone so terrified of the Dark Presence and obsessed with keeping the lights on, fell to the darkness. It's because Rose took Cynthia's angel lamp that used to belong to Thomas Zane. She put it in a shoebox and put it in the lake after a message she received from Alan told her to, which, you may remember, is the lamp Alan used in his section of the game, and it's the lamp the clicker was cut from. Now do you see where my theory comes from? As for the ritual, Saga has to find an old Gods of Asgard record and play it on the jukebox, an unreleased song called Anger's Remorse, which Odin says was written by Tor as an apology to his daughter Freya, who is also Saga's mother. He drove them away when Saga was very young, and I may as well make it clear now that Saga is actually the granddaughter of Tor. It's not created by the story. The three of them can tell what the story has changed, so they'd know if they weren't actually related. So Saga did actually live in water when she was very young, However, her living here with her daughter after her divorce was created by the story. Saga deduces that the Anger's Remorse record is in Cynthia's bathtub, which, if you'll remember, is where Alan found her body and the record in the dark place before they disappeared. She retrieves the record and puts it in the jukebox, giving her access to the entire Old Gods of Asgard discography before she steps into the overlap. This time it's the Ocean View Motel and Spa, and it comes with a free set of bolt cutters! This is how Saga gets past all the padlocks around Bright Falls. She gets through the loops of the motel and reaches a flooded room, which essentially serves as phase 1 of this boss fight, as Saga has to reach the generator and get the power back on so she can activate the lights. However, Cynthia is lurking in the water, so she'll come after Saga if she's in the water for too long. It's Remedy's take on the amnesia monster. You know, this one! And Saga's total lack of urgency when it comes to both getting on and getting off these platforms to weave Weaver makes this way more stressful than it needs to be. And fittingly, the second phase of this fight is just as annoying as the section that came before it with its 12 jump scares. This is basically a fight you lose right away unless you know exactly what to do. She has incredibly strong attacks that hone in on Saga and knock her down, so odds are she'll have another attack headed your way the second you get up from the previous one. Your best bet is to throw a flare at her the second she spawns to burn her darkness shield, then light her up with the hunting rifle and crossbow as much as possible, hopefully bringing her crashing down to ground level before she has much of a chance to do anything. The final phase is a lot easier, as all she'll do is charge at Saga relentlessly, leaving her open to lots of shotgun or pistol shots to finally flip the switch on the Lady of the Light once and for all, so we can finally get Saga's third conversation with Wake, which is his second conversation with her.
It's you again. The FBI agent. Saga Anderson. I'm closer now. I can feel it. You helped me get closer to escaping.
Wake? Where are you? Is this coming from the dark place when you were still trapped? I have the clicker. We can finish this.
You know about the clicker? It can help us. I destroyed the dark presence with it last time. You can help. You can find it. You must find it.
I already have it. I can get it to you. But I have to understand. Did you write Logan into the story?
Alice is in danger. I have to stop Scratch. I have to find Return. I need to get back to my apartment. I'm writing a story to get through. Initiation. It's the only way.
Then change the story. If this is the past, if this is you still in the dark place, then you can do that, right? You cannot write her in. She's my daughter, goddammit!
And we end Return 5 with Tor safe and sound and a proper chance to listen to Anger's Remorse. It's not my favorite Old Gods of Asgard song, but it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Probably the best compliment that I can give it is that it's really their only song that you can completely remove from the context of the plot and still enjoy.
But you're the sea that can break the curse. For in the twilight of my years, I am nothing but anger's remorse.
It's just a good song about someone reflecting on their mistakes now that they're older and wanting to make up for them, which Tor will start to do by answering all of Saga's questions. He first reveals that their family's power as seers goes beyond being able to tell what is real and what's being changed by the story. The mind place and Saga's intuition are a part of it as well. The profiling she does is actually reading other people's minds. He also talks about Saga's father, saying it was his dislike of her father that really drove a wedge between him and Freya, especially after her father's disappearance, though he refuses to disclose his identity. Finally, he says the clicker can't be used without Wake there to rewrite the story first, so she has to pay him a visit at the sheriff station that the FBC is working out of. I get why Saga is mad that Logan is in the story and her death in it is on the verge of becoming real, but why is she blaming Alan for it? He has said several times that this is Scratch's story, and that Scratch is using it to get to her. All she has to do is open up her mind place and dive into Scratch's criminal mind to see that that's true. Now that Saga is out of the overlap and has the bolt cutters in hand, every corner of Bright Falls is available to her, so you can run around and finish up most of the collectibles, or you can head straight to the sheriff's station for Return 6 Scratch. What could go wrong? Well, it appears things already went wrong, as Saga encounters a wounded Agent Estevez, who warns her that the station has been taken over by a Taken infestation, and that they're low on supplies thanks to problems at their HQ. I wonder what mess Jessie has to clean up now. Maybe the sheriff's pump-action shotgun will help her like it will help Saga. Then again, she's got the service weapon and superpowers, so probably not. Saga restores the power to the station with the help of Alex Casey, located by the FBC after his run-in with the Dark Presence. He's alive, but not doing too great. With the power back on, she's able to confront Alan in his cell next to Yako and Ilmo. After yelling at him for something he didn't do and something he already plans on fixing, she agrees to hand over the clicker.
There it is. We've been waiting for you, motherfucker. I'm gonna fucking destroy you!
Well, that was unexpected. It seems that Scratch was just pretending to be Alan the whole time, and the real Alan Wake is still in the dark place, though Saga is able to stop him temporarily with some FBC-grade lights to end the chapter, and give us one of the worst songs in the game. Dark, Twisted, and Cruel.
You have no light in sight. Just in this darkness to fight. The horror story comes true. I'm dark, twisted, and cruel.
It's just nowhere near my kind of music. So it seems now like maybe Initiation and Return are happening parallel to each other. However parallel two dimensions with different laws of time can be. Saga's research into the Dark Place and the Dark Presence using the FBC's files and talking more with Tor leads her to discover that she can use the clicker to change reality. She just can't use it to change the horror story they're in. Only Alan can do that. So she devises a plan with the old gods of Asgard where they'll write and perform a song to get Alan out of the dark place for real, so that when she presses the clicker, he's free. However, Saga being able to use the clicker confirms that it's not an object of power, right? At least not by the definition we know. Objects of power are bound to and usable by one person at a time, and the clicker gained the power that it has through the connection Alan had with it in his childhood. The only known OOP with shareable qualities is the ashtray maze, as the pair-utilitarian bound to it can choose who can get through the maze, but it doesn't let those people create their own mazes, so it seems like the clicker is just a very powerful altered item that can make works of art become permanent reality. That sounds very dangerous, especially if just anyone can use it.
Oh man, I gotta use it!
Saga can also learn the truth of the cult of the tree from the grieving Ilmo. It turns out that they were never an actual cult. They're a secretive neighborhood watch that took on the frightening appearance of a cult in order to scare people away from going into the woods at night. As they patrol Cauldron Lake looking for any Taken that come out and kill them by performing the same ritual Alan Wake used to defeat the Dark Presence, jamming the clicker in the hole where its heart used to be and activating it. So Nightingale was already a Taken before the cult got to him. He only survived because they were interrupted. And they blame Alan Wake for all of this happening, which is why they want him so badly. His story was the reason the 2010 nightmare happened, even though it was really the Dark Presence, but shh. And they kept finding pages of his writing floating up from the lake as well as inside the Taken. So the Cult of the Tree were actually good guys all along. Well, except for the Taken ones. They're still bad. Also, since the Cult of the Tree is doing all of this because of what happened in 2010, then I guess Alan didn't rewind time fully at the end. Everything that happened still happened, but also he went back to the beginning and rescued Alice. It could also mean that the clock rewinding was to show that time doesn't work normally in the Dark Place. We're in the end game now, so you have to finish both sides of the story to progress to Return 7, Summoning. They all make their way to Cauldron Lake for the Old Gods of Asgard's newest single, Dark Ocean Summoning. However, their attempt to summon Alan Wake summons a boatload of Taken because of the blaring music, obviously. So Saga gets her own Children of the Elder God moment, as Agent Estevez mans a spotlight and Casey throws down supply crates for assistance. They successfully create a connection to the Dark Place and use the clicker, but fail to receive the Alan Wake they were promised. Let's go down to the Dark Place ourselves and see what's going on with him in Initiation 9, gone. Parliament Tower is finally back, so Alan can enter and resume editing Return. Remember, he's still under the assumption that Scratch is in there undoing his edits. After all this time, he has to be almost done. The apartment is almost entirely empty aside from the newest entry in Alice's vlog series. And let's see what she has to say in this episode.
I just wanted to show the world what I see. I can't keep going like I have been. It's time for a perspective shift. To go from photographer to subject. From artist to art.
Well, that's tragic, and Alan is understandably pissed that Scratch drove his wife to suicide, so I can't really blame him for what comes next.
He was scratching my edits out of Return. I had seen this before. This was not Scratch. This was me. Caught in a loop. I had stopped myself trying to fix the manuscript. I was the one haunting Alice. It was always me. I killed her. This is the ritual to lead you on. Your friends will meet him when you're gone.
So in summary, Alan Wake and Mr. Scratch are the same person, with the Dark Presence taking over Alan's body after Alan destroyed Scratch's physical form in Alan Wake's American Nightmare, being able to infiltrate his mind after it was flooded with negative thoughts following the realization that he was Scratch all along.
You made those words up.
It's another paradox, my favorite. Alan Wake becomes Mr. Scratch because he realized he is Mr. Scratch. He wrote Return, he edited Return, and he stopped himself from writing Return, all a part of the strange loops of the Dark Place and the Dark Presence battling for control of his mind. Also, Wake and Scratch being the same person is teased all the way back in Herald of Darkness. Saga's group's attempt to bring Wake out of the Dark Place did work. The ritual they just performed is the reason he showed up on the beach back toward the start of the game, and them doing that weakened the Dark Presence, which is why it took so long for Scratch to take control of Alan again. And all those headaches and blackouts he had were the Dark Presence getting stronger and temporarily taking over his body. The song also brought Scratch here now, and he wants a rematch against Saga, but she manages to lock him in a containment cell and blast the Dark Presence out of him with light. Unfortunately, the Dark Presence planned for this as it hops right into Casey, being able to take control of him after weakening him in their earlier encounter, snatching the clicker and tossing Saga into the Dark Place. So, ultimately, Alan and Saga perform the old switcheroo, and Scratch presses the clicker, activating his endgame as a strange monotone hand catches the clicker after he drops it to end the chapter. The chapter song is Dark Ocean Summoning, once again giving us a chance to hear the new song on its own.
Come save your soul, oh
It's a great, energizing rock song, perfect for where it's placed. And I like how they say Alan Wake without actually summoning him by name. It's pretty clever.
Once more the ocean's a lake, so alike it lay awake.
We pick back up with Alan Wake on the shore of Cauldron Lake, watching Tor and Odin voluntarily enter the dark place and then equipping himself with Agent Estevez's help to finally take Scratch down once and for all. For Casey, for Saga, and most importantly, for Alice. Again, I'm not a fan of Alan blaming himself for everything that happened. The 2010 story he wrote was heavily edited by the Dark Presence against his will, and Return was written when it had taken over his mind. It's not like he decided to bring all these people into his stories and take everything from them. In a truly heroic moment, Alan reflects on how it took him 13 years to get out, and that he dove into the dark place to save Alice, not knowing what would happen. Now he's finally out and is choosing to go right back into the nightmare he just escaped in order to save everyone brought into the horror story, knowing full well there's a chance he never gets another opportunity to escape.
Because that's what heroes do.
We begin Return 8 Deerfest, and you know, I expected Scratch's nightmare reality to be a bit darker. More The Long Night and less...
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
The entire world revolves around Alan Wake's new book, Return, and it's so popular that it's nearly impossible for Alan to find a copy so he can read the ending. It's clearly a hot commodity, as the entire town runs after him after he gets his hands on one from his own hands, though he's able to flee to the house in the photo on the back, which is also the Valhalla Nursing Home / Ocean View Hotel. The Dark Presence chases him through the wellness center, and he finds refuge in the nursing home thanks to Rose, who has seemingly entered the dark place to assist Alan. I guess you could say she rose to the occasion, as she was told to in one of the many messages Alan sent her, though he claims he never did that. I gotta say, I love how Rose has so clearly become the new Cynthia Weaver, being madly in love with the artist who sacrifices himself to the dark place for his true love, being dedicated to keeping their memory alive, and thinking the artist is reaching out to them through different means, asking them to do different things. It makes it even more thematically fitting that Rose, following one of those messages and helping Alan's escape, got Cynthia killed in the process. Regardless of whether Alan sent those messages or not, she guides him to the writer's room, which Ahti has prepared and unlocked. Alan has to change the ending from an eternal Deerfest that eventually spreads to the whole world, and a vision tells him that the hero has to pay a heavy price in order to save everyone else, bringing us to the end of Return 8 and giving us the song No One Left to Love.
I'll change the story where it's saying there is no one left to love.
Pretty good. It sounds like something you'd hear in an edgy TV show made for teenage girls. Now it's time to find out what happened to Saga. She is trapped in her mind place, haunted by her negative thoughts that she failed everyone and got her daughter killed, using her memories and abilities as a seer to remind herself of the truth that she isn't perfect, but the story isn't over yet. In the process, she drops a completely unnecessary line that damn near soured me on her whole character.
Another white asshole deciding what I get to do. How I get to do it.
Alright, hold on, let me check something. Yeah, that checks out. I'd like to mention that a narrative consulting company that says on the front page of their website that they aim to make games more inclusive for everyone either wrote a racist line in this game or saw it and let it slide. Probably the first one. Either way, that's not inclusive for everyone. I hate to break it to you guys, but white people are people. Like, can you imagine the outrage if Alan Wake described Saga as another black bitch trying to blame all her problems on white people? Also, Saga knows that Alan was being manipulated and controlled by the Dark Presence. She saw it happen. Why does she repeatedly refuse to acknowledge that and instead blame Alan himself for everything? He's on your side here. He is actively trying to fix everything at this very moment.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up, literally!
Anyway, Saga escapes her mind place and awakens in the dark place thanks to a familiar voice to begin Return 9, Come Home. Just like Alan, she has a phone to answer. An unknown caller tells her to visit Parliament Tower Plaza and look inside the shoebox. And I'll tell you right now, it's never answered who this caller is. I have a guess, though, that I'll mention later. Saga has no known way to get to Parliament Tower, but Sheriff Breaker might be able to help with that. Now that they're reunited, he's able to give her the manuscript page he meant to give her all the way back in the morgue. And it's the only page about the enigmatic Warland door. Remember him? This very important page reveals quite a few things. First, Door has the ability to sense that Alan is writing him into his story. Second, he only became a talk show host because Alan wrote him to be one and he played along.
It was to indulge you, but we can stop pretending now.
Third, he has the ability to step between realities as he pleases, essentially confirming that he's the same person as Martin Hatch. There's a bit more to him we can deduce, but we're almost at the end, so just hang in there. Saga uses the door method to reach the plaza and retrieve the clicker and a bullet of light from the shoebox, real versions of the photos Alan put in there ages ago. And one of those photos was recreated when Scratch dropped the clicker. And another mystery caller tells Saga that she has to help Alan write the ending to Return. We do actually figure out who this is, but not yet. She communicates with Alan and they work together to figure out that they both get to write the ending since they're both the heroes in the story.
A story is a beast with a life of its own. You can create it, shape it, but as the story grows, it starts wanting things of its own.
And the price has to be heavier the more people they save, as is the nature of a horror story. For example, the final girl in a slasher movie usually loses all her friends. Saga makes it to the writer's room and they begin the final act, Scratch arriving just in time for Saga to press the clicker and make the ending real. The dark presence ejects itself from Casey and returns to Alan, and Saga shoots Alan in the head with the bullet of light to kill him and the dark presence, the hero having sacrificed himself so everyone else could live. Casey's okay, but the screen cuts to black before Saga can confirm if Logan is alive. Maybe wait until you're out of the dark place to try a phone call. Now, I know what you're probably thinking.
What the fuck?
But the story's not over yet. After the credits roll to the very bad song Prayer at the Gate, we get another twist in the narrative.
This part is just for you. After the haunting started, I got in touch with an organization that was still looking into what happened in Bright Falls. I went to their offices and something happened there. After I got home, I could suddenly remember everything. I remembered being trapped inside that lake. A dark ocean with echoes of myself, my fears, my photos, inside a dark tide of madness, the same events and images looping again and again. And then I saw a light. Your light. You dove in just as I swam out. You never drowned. And you're still there reaching out. That is what the haunting is. I can see you because I've been there too. I chose to come back to the dark place. That is why I put on this exhibition. I had to mislead you so that I could get you to where you needed to be. The only way out of your loop is destruction or ascension, light or dark. And we've covered the destruction part many times over. And we're getting to the ascension bit by bit. Time means nothing here. You'll still need to go through the loop. But I will keep showing you the images you need to see, the light you need to see, until you're ready. Alan, I think we're getting close.
It's not a loop.
It's a spiral.
And then the rest of the credits roll to the very good Poets of the Fall song Heroes and Villains. Believe it or not, there is still more to go.
I'm like a goddamn gigolo ready to burst, and she's saying no, 3 more minutes at least.
But we can answer a few burning questions here and now. Alice never died. Her visit to the oldest house reminded her of what happened to Alan, confirming that time didn't rewind at the end of the first game. She did spend time in the dark place, she just didn't remember it. And she eventually figured out that the monster she was seeing was actually her husband trying to reach out to her from the dark place. And she voluntarily dove back into Cauldron Lake to help him escape. My best guess is that she misled Alan into believing she had died with those videos so he could see that he and Scratch are the same person, giving him the information he needed to defeat the Dark Presence, seemingly for good. Furthermore, Alice is the one who called Saga the second time, telling her to help Alan write the ending of the story, and she may very well be the one who reached out to Rose with all those messages. It could explain how Alice's photos and the lamp Rose sent ended up in the same shoebox, and Rose's involvement was crucial in getting Alan where he needed to be. Then there's that final line.
It's not a loop. It's a spiral.
Very similar to It's Not a Lake, It's an Ocean from the first game. This is in reference to how, throughout the entire game, Alan assumed the Dark Place worked in a loop, with him doomed to repeat the same general course over and over again. But Alice telling him that there's a chance for ascension made it click that he's not stuck in a loop, he's stuck in a looping spiral. He just needs to get to the end of it and focus on that instead of destroying versions of himself. This is evident in the Final Draft New Game Plus mode. This isn't just the same exact story repeated but harder. This is Alan retelling the story with knowledge he just gained from Alice and the first playthrough we just did. We see proof of this as early as the opening narration, as Alan is a lot more optimistic this time around, saying he's going to find the miracle beyond the shadow he settled for and emerge into the light. Also, his ending narration before he gets shot segues perfectly into his opening narration. Because, you know, loop.
What if this is still the Dark Place, another dream to wake up from, always coming back to the beginning? The memory of what came before burned away by this terrible realization. Maybe it's a mercy, forgetting. To know nothing when we loop around, back to the beginning. We all come to a story with hopes and expectations, looking for an answer. To know nothing when we loop around, back to the beginning. With the memory of the past loop already fading fast.
Saga's end of the story plays out mostly the exact same. All the key changes are on Alan's side, starting with the jammed TV signal all the way back in Initiation 1.
Time is broken here. Maybe time never worked the way we think it does. It loops around, and yet it goes forward. A spiral. I thought I was finding remnants of the earlier loops, earlier drafts of my writing, earlier sites, that I had left clues, mementos for myself to guide me on, but maybe that's only part of it. If time is not a straight line, then there are loops beyond these loops. Vast complex superstructures beyond what's happening to me now, ahead of me. And I'm there as well, a version of me, something I have become, some elevated, enlightened virgin, an archon, a demiurge, a demon of some sort, playing a secret game, building something, his past self upon to get him there. A deus ex machina pushing me there. I hate the idea of crazy, intrusive thought. And yet, no crazier than anything else here.
So that explains the phone call Alan receives from himself towards the end of Initiation. It's a version of himself that is further along in the spiral that is guiding his past self to where he needs to be to get to the point he's at then. He finds a photo of himself after being shot with the bullet of light that tells him he still has to go through the loop, and then we jump ahead to Initiation 5, where Alan could briefly spot Dr. Casper Darling on TV. But now the signal comes through.
This is Dr. Casper Darling, formerly of the Federal Bureau of Control. I think the signal is coming through now. Are you receiving me? Something shifted. The previously observed interference disrupting my broadcast has gone. Best I can describe. This place is a dreamscape. But who's the dreamer? Hypotheses escape. My struggle with this is that the way this place works makes any hypothesis immediately come back to alter and contaminate the data. Our depth by night. I was caught in a loop. There. The deeper into the dark depths I got, peeling off the layers of the dark place, like the ocean zones, from twilight to midnight, to abyssal to the deepest trenches, the closer I felt going down. This voice, the narration, from twilight to midnight, to abyssal to keeps going forever. This leads me to believe it's what's holding this place together. It's making it real. Is this the voice of the dreamer? What's strange is it sounds a little bit like my voice.
So our good friend Dr. Darling somehow went and got himself trapped in the dark place. If that was a result of overexposure to Hedron resonance, which we learned in Control was just amplifying Polaris's resonance, does that mean Polaris is connected to the dark place somehow? Darling's other message is right before Initiation 8, right after Wake shoots Zane. Dr. Darling meets Thomas Zane, and the two of them agree to work together to combine art and science in an attempt to escape the dark place. In fact, we might have even seen a product of that partnership with Darling's Dynamite video. Thomas Zane is a filmmaker, after all. Yeah, that sounds like it'll be important eventually, huh? Penultimately, we go back to right before the end of the game. Right before Saga enters the writer's room, she can now see the old gods of Asgard waiting for her, claiming they missed her the last time around. They say that they have been down here performing on Warlindor's show after burying the hatchet, and that Saga will be able to escape the dark place through the puddle Ahti set up, but they'll be staying here, confirming that Ahti has a lot more power than it seems, and giving us the final clue towards Warlindor's true identity. Looking at all the pieces in place for us, I can confidently say that Warlindor is Saga's dad. Beyond the obvious, there are several hints scattered throughout the game. For starters, when Saga asks Tor about her father, he says some doors are best left unopened. And one of Dor's reasons for why he's mad at Alan is, "You kept opening doors," which comes right after him saying he's mad that Alan brought someone close to him into the story. Furthermore, it's made very clear that Tor's dislike for his son-in-law was a huge source of friction between him and his daughter. There's a document about the old gods negotiating with the dark man who stood in between, who agreed to leave their family alone in exchange for help and then disappeared in lightning. And not only does Dor describe a door as something that is in between two rooms at the same time, but Warlindor, the man himself, disappeared after being struck by lightning, both of which happened in 1988.
Coincidence? I think not!
If you aren't convinced, turn your attention back to Anger's Remorse, a song written by Tor for Saga to help guide her into the dark place. It includes these lines.
Dive through the dark to find a light on the other side. You will find in there the peace you miss in the man.
And the old gods going into the dark place to join Dor's show as a way to help Alan seems to confirm they knew he was down there the whole time. So I think they made it fairly obvious that Dor is Saga's dad. Whether that means she'll inherit his ability to step between realities or not remains to be seen. Also, one more comment on Sweet Baby, because you can never insult them enough. I like how the same inclusive team that failed to see through their own pandering to realize that no one in the plot of Spider-Man 2 matters except the three white dudes also failed to realize that one of the main characters in Alan Wake 2 is a woman with a black father who she's never met.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
I mean, come on, the jokes write themselves. Finally, we go to the end of the game. No, really, the very end. The final cutscene is extended to show that Logan is safe and sound back at home. I don't know what kind of cell service Saga has to make a phone call from the dark place. I go down a certain stretch of road and lose all signal. But Alan voices over the ending to reveal what he knows.
When the bullet of light blew the darkness out of the crater of my skull, the dark presence was born from the remains, feeding on the horror around it to grow. It found me writing. It tapped into me, influenced me. I was lost in my work, The link was severed when I finished Return, but the Dark Presence was hungry for more. And I was missing the small part of myself that it had been born from. Alice, love is strange. Even apart, we're still together in our memories. We put each other through hell to set us free. Again and again. Different versions of us. Alice helped me get there, where I needed to be. It has taken so long. The process to change reality is so delicate, to be true in just the right way and still find a way past our flaws. So many drafts, so many photographs, so many lives lived outside of time. An eternity apart on this journey to finally arrive here. The ending worked. Scratch is gone.
At last.
Thank you, my love. And so I return. With me I bear the torch of knowledge, the light, the miracle illuminated. The master of two worlds. No, the master of many worlds.
So, in layman's terms, the creation of the Dark Presence is another paradox. It was created in the remains of the gunshot to purge the darkness from Alan's head. And things kept looping because Alan was missing the piece of himself where the Dark Presence resided. But now that piece of him is filled with Alice's love for him and his love for Alice. So she made it up to him by saving him after he saved her. So presumably, they now have to save each other. It is pretty beautiful symbolism that Alan's darkest elements are replaced by the pure love he shares with his wife. Also, Alan saying that different versions of himself and Alice have been doing this whole song and dance for eternity might mean that Thomas Zane and Barbara Jagger are just different versions of them. As for Alan's claim that his enlightenment has made him become the master of many worlds, that one's a bit more open-ended. It seems that Alan may have reached a level similar to Ati or Warland Door, able to travel between realities as he pleases, either literally or through projecting himself in his writing. If the two worlds he was referring to before were the real world and the dark place, then the other worlds included in that could be other dimensions, like, for example, the astral plane. Or maybe he can enter parallel universes like Tim Breaker does in his dreams. Maybe Alan Wake 3 will see Alan jumping into the worlds of Quantum Break and Max Payne if Remedy can get the IP rights back. If I can sum up the plot of this game as simply as possible, I'd say, well, he failed, but he sure did try. I'm fairly certain Alan can't use the puddle to return to the surface like Saga and Casey. He's still trapped in the dark place. Return didn't work in the sense that it didn't lead to his escape. However, both initiation and return together put Alan in exactly the place he needs to be in order to properly escape the dark place once and for all. Furthermore, it seems like both the dark place and the dark presence were created by Alan himself. Alan already said the Dark Presence was born out of him killing the Dark Presence, but it also makes clear that the Dark Place revolves around Alan Wake. Darling hears Alan's thoughts as the resonance holding the place together, and it seems like others trapped in there don't forget what happens in a loop if Alan doesn't forget. Tim's whiteboard mentions him losing his memories until recently, which happens to coexist with Alan keeping his memories. If he didn't create the dark place, then it seems like he at least controls it or a part of it. Maybe a part of him being the master of many worlds means he has expanded control of the dark place unimpeded by Scratch. Also, I just want to throw this out there, but one line I could not get out of my head after finishing Alan Wake for the first time was this.
Alan, wake up.
At first I thought this might have been a little tease that maybe the whole game was a dream, but it's become abundantly clear that it all really happened. But then I heard this line.
Saga, wake up.
So maybe that was actually Alice helping Alan to escape after she dove back into the dark place. Because I don't think they would have Alice say it to Saga as well for no reason. It feels purposely planted there for us to make that connection. Or, playing through every Remedy game in the span of a couple weeks and writing these reviews for days on end drove me insane. They're equally possible at this point, so I think it's time to wrap things up before I'm brought to the White Room. I don't really know how this managed to be one of the greatest yet most disappointing games I've ever played at the exact same time. It is absolutely amazing in so many different aspects, but sort of underwhelming in a few crucial elements. Pretty much the entire end of the game barely bothers with being a resolution. It exists almost entirely just to set up Alan Wake 3, which, I get it, that's what a lot of middle installments do, but there is a 13-year gap between the first two installments. I think there should have been a bit more of an ending than, well, he didn't escape, maybe next time, especially since that's the same ending as the Alan Wake DLCs and American Nightmare, and a bunch of loose threads with no concrete answers, though I did my best to provide as many answers as I could. Then there's Saga's sections of the game, and her inclusion in general. I get why they're there, it feeds the whole theme of duality, but they really could have been better. They feel twice as long as Alan's sections and half as good. Most of the time it feels like you're playing a generic modern survival horror game that could belong to a number of different franchises, and I just never really grew to care about Saga herself. Definitely not enough to see her as a hero on par with Alan Wake, let alone better, but my god, Alan's sections of this game in the dark place are absolutely incredible. The sheer amount of creativity in the set design, the gameplay mechanics, the presentation in the narrative is second to none and carries this game hard. The Herald of Darkness section alone raises this game to a 7 out of 10 minimum. I love how they expand on Alan's character here, taking him from a somewhat likable dickhead who makes the ultimate sacrifice to a tortured hero desperate to save everyone no matter the cost, firmly cementing himself as one of gaming's greatest modern heroes when he decides to jump right back into the dark place as soon as he gets out. Though I really could have done without all the attempts to convince me that everything was Alan Wake's fault and that he's actually a terrible person, because it's just simply not true. One thing Remedy has done very well is find the balance between storytelling and gameplay. Survival horror is a genre that is hit or miss for me. I find it to be too slow sometimes, with an over-reliance on puzzles and slow backtracking while mostly ignoring the horror part. But this game takes that genre and adds just enough action to make it even more fun while keeping the horror alive. Alan's time in the dark place has you on your toes constantly, and Saga's has some great moments too, though the jump scares more than outstay their welcome. This game also looks amazing, and they continue to get better at integrating live action. I said it before, but it's worth repeating just how good Ilka Villi and Matthew Peretta are here, and I'm glad they both have their own characters to play as well. Speaking of Darling, Dr. Darling, I appreciate that you don't need a full understanding of Control to play this. The problem with a lot of connected universes is that the barrier for entry gets higher the longer it goes on. You need to know what happened in the first game, but that's true with pretty much every sequel. But you don't need to know everything about the FBC, the Hiss, AWEs, and Jesse Faden to understand and enjoy Alan Wake 2, though it certainly enhances the experience even more. As I sat back and let the credits roll, I had a realization. Alan Wake 2 is just The Last of Us Part 2 done right. A long-awaited survival horror sequel to a beloved game with a flawed protagonist that people connected to finally coming back after a long gap. But, unlike The Last of Us 2, Alan Wake is actually treated with respect here. Remedy doesn't have Saga bash Alan's skull in after an hour and then force you to play as her for 20 more hours. Yeah, her disrespect towards him gets annoying, but it is very much still Alan's story. And they set up a third installment that I actually want to see. I just don't want to wait 13 years for it. The final score for Alan Wake 2 is a tough one. This is by far the best game I've played in a long time. I don't play a lot of modern games because they aren't very good, but Remedy continues to excel and stand as one of the most exciting game development studios going right now. Gee, it's almost like gamers appreciate artistic vision and passion more than a cash grab to satiate a corporate bottom line. Despite my gripes with certain elements of the execution, this still stands as a fantastic game that I will never forget. So Alan Wake 2 gets a 9 out of 10. I debated giving it a 10, but I know they can do better. Alan Wake 3, if executed properly, will almost certainly earn a perfect 10. Whew, and that's a wrap on our journey through the Remedy Connected Universe. For now, at least.
Psych!
Continue.
A haunting new season of mind-bending episodes, written by Alan Wake. I am your host, Warland Orr, and I will see you soon in Night Springs.